Say amen. Amen. A few moments this evening. What's love got to do with it? What's love got to do with it? 1 Corinthians chapter 13, around about verses number 5 and following says, doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil, rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth. It says that beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. Then it says charity or love never faileth. It says, but whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. It says, whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. This is what we know in part and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. He says, when I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know even as I am known. And finally he says in verse 13, and now abideth faith, hope, charity. He said these three, but the greatest of these three is charity. What's love got to do with it? What is love? Webster defines it as tender, passionate affection for another person, or a feeling of warm personal attachment or deep affection. So then what's love got to do with it? Ike Turner defined it as eat the cake and a man. Tina Turner defined it, love as a second-hand emotion. Al Green defined love as something that'll make you do wrong, make you do right. Isaac Hayes defined love as never can say goodbye. The Temptations define love, wait a minute, y'all don't know none of these folks, do you? The Temptations define love as just mine. And then the Isley brothers said, choosing love. Y'all don't know that one, do you? Oh, finding the Shylites, they didn't know what to define love, and they said, have you seen her? Some of y'all are too young to know these songs, but keep living. But when I look at Jesus one-on-one, Jesus defines love as grace. He defines love as mercy. He defines love as unmerited favor. He defines love as forgiveness, long-suffering, patience. When I look at Jesus one-on-one, I see that love suffers long. It's kind. Love envieth not. Love vaunteth not itself. It's not pushy. Love does not behave itself unseemly. Seeketh not her own. It's not easily provoking. It thinketh no evil. Love rejoiceth not in iniquity. And you know love beareth all. Three points this afternoon, and the lesson is yours. Christ's love is unspeakable. Many times after Christ got through healing the sick or forgiving the sinner man, all people could do is walk off in amazement. When Christ has done something for you that no man else could ever do, all other folks can do is walk off in amazement. Number two, Christ's love is unconditional. We put standards on who we're going to love and who we're not going to love. But Christ don't care where you've been, only where you're going. And finally, Christ's love, point number 3, is sacrificial. Turn over to John chapter number 8. St. John chapter 8. We're going to pick up around about verses number 1. Jesus went unto the Mount of Olives. Early in the morning he came again into the temple. All the people came unto him and sat down and taught them. And the scribes and Pharisees brought to him a woman taken in adultery. When they had set her in the midst, they say unto him, Master, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act. He said, Now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned. But what sayest thou? This they said, tempting him, that they might have to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down and with his finger wrote on the ground as though he heard them not. So when they continued asking him, he lifted himself up and said unto them, He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. And again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. And they which heard it, being convicted by their own conscience, went out one by one, beginning at the eldest, even unto the last. And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. When Jesus had lifted up himself, saw none but the woman, he said unto her, Woman, where art thou those accusers? He said, Hath no man condemned thee? She said, No man, Lord. And Jesus said unto her, Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. Christ's love is unspeakable. Look at when Christ delivers you from the snare of the devil, all the devil can do is tuck his tail and move on. Look at verses number 6 through 11. This they said, tempt him that they might have to accuse him, but Jesus stooped down with his finger, wrote on the ground as though he heard them not. So when they continued asking him, he lifted up himself and said unto them, He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. Then verse 11 says, She said, No man, Lord. And Jesus said unto her, Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. We at times do the same thing. If you have no sin, go ahead and cast the stone. But that stone you throw is going to be the same strong stone coming right back at you. Christ says, yeah, she was wrong, but the party you left her there was wrong too. And you wrong for going in there and bringing her up out of there. Therefore, all of you need a Savior. Sometimes we get caught up in looking at another man's sin and we forget about our own sin. Jesus' love is unspeakable because he is about salvation rather than condemnation. Where's the scripture? John chapter 3 verses 17 says, For God sent his Son into the world not to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. For years we have been worried about the mote in other folks' eyes instead of fixing the beam that's in our own eyes. A mote is described as a speckle. A beam is described as a log. You got to get your log of sin fixed, then come and see me about my speckle. Understand this, that everybody is in need of a Savior. Everybody is going to have a speckle. Some Christians are going to have some logs or beams. But Christ has significant, he has adequate, he's got just enough power to deliver us all. When you look at setting traps for other means, you have to be careful because you'll mess around and fall in the own same trap you set. Look at Luke chapter number 7. Luke 7. Jesus' love is unconditional. Here in Luke 7, we have a Pharisee that invited Jesus over to sup, and when he gets over there, somebody shows up and kind of messes up the Pharisees' party, what he had in mind. And we're going to pick up round about verse number 43 for sake of time. Simon, Luke 7, verse 43, Simon answered and said, I suppose that he to whom he forgave most. And he said unto him, Thou hast rightly judged. And he turned to the woman and said to Simon, Seest thou this woman? He said, I entered into thine house, thou gavest me no water for my feet. It said, but she washed, it said, my feet with tears, and wiped them with the hairs of her head. He says, thou gavest me no kiss, but this woman since the time I came in have not ceased to kiss my feet. He said, my head with oil thou didst not anoint, He said, but this woman hath anointed my feet with ointment. He said, wherefore I say unto thee, her sins, which are many, are forgiven. For she loved much, but to whom little is forgiven, he said, the same loveth little. We have, as a society, loved people with restraint and with partiality. It's a fact. If the person's clothes are not designer, they get no love. If the car is not name brand, they get no love. Oh, if the house is not built by United Build or Hackelman Brothers, they get no love. Sometimes even if you don't smell right, they won't even come around. God forbid if you had a past, you sure won't get no love. This woman was a woman of the streets, but she knew that healing, she knew that salvation, she knew that forgiveness was in Jesus Christ. Simon couldn't understand, neither can we sometimes, but Christ understands, and that's all that we need to know. See, though you may have been a fighter in your day, Jesus still loves you. Though you may have been a cusser in your day, Jesus still loves you. Though you may have been a woman or a man of the street, Jesus still loves you. Though we were shown up liars sometimes, Jesus still loves you. Hatred in your heart, Jesus still loves you. Jealousy in your heart, Jesus still loves you. You just can't stand your brother or your sister, Jesus still loves you. Listen, man's love is wish-washing, but Jesus' love is shown up. Man's love can be fake, but Jesus' love remains real. Man's love can be little, but Jesus' love is big enough for the whole wide world. You may not want to show love today, but Jesus shows love every day. Jesus' love is unconditional. And finally, Jesus' love is sacrificial. Over in John chapter 15, verse 13, it says, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. When you think about sacrificial giving, it means to give when it hurts. We think we are giving sacrificially, but we're not even close sometimes, church. Sacrificial causes you to groan sometimes. You might cry sometimes when it's sacrificial. It hurts sacrificial. The soldiers planted a crown of thorns on Jesus' head. Can you say love? They spit upon him and struck him. That's love. They mocked him. They nailed him to the cross. Even when he was dead, after he was dead, they pierced him in the side. Even while he was being crucified, he told the Father to forgive them, for they know not what they do. But you know what? When God is for you, I said this morning, can't nobody be against you. So even after they crucified him and they pierced him in their side, they called themselves putting him in the borrowed tomb, Jesus messes around and he raises back up on Sunday morning with all power in his hand. Now, because of Jesus, we have the opportunity to live life and to show some love to our fellow brothers. His love is unspeakable because man can't understand it. His love is unending because he's everlasting. His love is unselfish because he loved us first. His love is unmerited because we didn't do nothing to earn it. His love is supernatural and sacrificial and is soul satisfying because he's our all in all. He stood in the gap when we couldn't stand. He saved us from hell when we were going to bust it wide open. He washed away our sins when we were dirty as filthy rags. He forgave us when we were not forgiving others. He redeemed us when we were not worthy. He healed us when we were sick. He loved us when we didn't love our own self. What's love got to do with it? It's got everything to do with it. As you go, and I told the church this morning, as you go into your new year, if the Lord bless you, I told them that we ought to leave all the silly mess behind and start getting serious about our Christianity, start getting serious about death, because death is ever present and death is knocking at your door. You may not look like it, you may not feel like it, you may not think you may think you got a few more years, but death is knocking at all of our doors, and we got to get ourselves together. And I'm going to tell you, the foundation of your Christianity, of your soul-winning Savior, it's got to be love. Love has got to be your foundation. If love is your foundation, if Christ is your rock that you stand, you can make it until your journey's end. This morning, see if we have any that need to come forth, those that may not be into the church. You come by here and believe and repent and confess it, been baptized into the water of grave, and remaining faithful unto death. And those of us that have been in the church for a little while, and sometimes we go through different storms, and you know what? That's life. life is going to bring different storms your way. And it's going to be storms that you may not necessarily want to go through. But having our hand, holding on to God's unchanging hand, will allow us to make it through each and every storm that we go through. If you need stand in need of prayer right now, you can do it as we together stand and sing the song that's been selected. Let's stand.
Have you been to Jesus? The cleansing power.